So, thank you. Also, I would like to thank the others who have given talks so far because they really prepare what I want to talk about. And we already heard in the previous session that it's important to kind of keep track of research ideas. And we were just hearing about digital outcomes, and RIO is a journal that just combines the two. It's about research ideas and outcomes, and it's in a digital-only format, although you can have it printed if you want to. And the idea behind it is actually to what was discussed by the science journalist in the previous session, like how can we make the process more visible? Not just kind of the way that current science journalism works is typically via that press release that says scientists have found out something. Wine is good or bad for your health, these kind of things. But they really rarely help you understand as to why the scientists are tackling this problem, or why they are tackling it this way, or how they're actually tackling it. And so the question is, and as was enumerated in several contexts in the previous contributions to this session, how can we make this process of actually doing research more visible? And I would like you to take like 30 seconds or so to think about a research idea that you are working or have been working in the past, and then think about how many traces this has left in the public. Whether you're still working on it or not. You don't have to tell me, because people are very often kind of very circumspicious about sharing their ideas. But my hedge, and we're back to another theme, is that the traces are much less than what you've actually done. Then now think about the things that you have actually produced on the way, or if you're just contemplating an idea, the things that you are planning to do, to produce on the way towards solving that particular problem that you're interested in. And then we have things like research ideas, proposals, data management plans, and all those different things that come on the way. Who here has written a research proposal in the last 2 years? Basically checking whether you're all asleep. So leave your hands open, no, up. Leave your hands up, please, if you've written a research proposal in the last 2 years. And now raise your other hand if any of those is public. Yeah, we have a few, but most of them, that's not. The question is, why not? Maybe you can, those of you who have had both hands open, you can briefly explain why you've made that public. Peter.
Well, I've published a research proposal in RIO Journal because I think it's very important to get everything out from day one. This is the only way you can do open science, is to start from day one saying what you want to do, and then you get the community involved, you get feedback, and you actually get publicity as well.
Okay, any other comments on that? And, well, we didn't make this up here. But the point here is that there's actually value in sharing the research process. Like, coming back to the baseball thing, you saw that terrible summary that was given. And in academia, we basically only share those summaries. We don't share the process. But as we saw through the visualizations by Cesar, it was TV that made baseball popular. We're not those summaries. Just imagine we had a similar thing going on in research. Imagine people could be following our research live on TV, live in stadiums. They have done this, like Otto von Guericke, when he did this famous experiment with the vacuum spheres, and the horses. Everybody in town wanted to see this. And that was like in the Middle Ages when they were still believing in the witches, as we heard. Just imagine we would be using the means of communication that we have to actually build on that potential excitement in the crowd. I'm getting excitement while I'm telling about this. And opening up the process so that people can come and watch the scientists do stuff. That people can come and engage with it, the same way they can engage with a baseball game. Or even further, in a baseball game, when you're watching it, you're not allowed to participate. In science, you can. There is citizen science. There's no citizen baseball in that sense. Of course, everybody can play citizen or baseball, but you can never apply with the big ones. But in science, in principle, you can now if we're doing things openly. And I'm just explaining all these things because Rio is an attempt to tackle those issues in a way that is, well, progressive enough to move things forward, but still not too different from a journal so that people can kind of relate to it. And so we call it a journal, but it has many features of other communication channels. This starts, for instance, if you just look at the homepage, you have browse articles, like in any other journal, you have an ISSN and things like that, but you have start a manuscript. So there is an associated authoring tool, which allows the journal to actually produce XML at the press of a button, rather than sending it to India, wait for 3 weeks, and then get the proofs and things like that. It has other features, so we will just, I don't have too much time to actually show all those features, but I'll give you a brief tour. So if you browse the articles, you notice those little icons here that actually map the research that is published to societal development goals. That's another area that is kind of the taxi driver story that Peter was referring to. Like, why does society fund the research? Because the research sometimes helps address societal problems. Maybe not all kinds of research help address the societal problems we have now, but hopefully it will contribute to the body of knowledge that will allow us to tackle societal problems eventually. And so here we're trying to make this explicit. So every paper is basically mapped to those 17 sustainable development goals. The altmetrics session is in parallel, but of course, like basically any other journal, we have altmetrics. But what you see here is we have research ideas, different kinds of publications. You can sort by publications. So, for instance, you can look for just the NSF or NIH grant proposals, something like this. Let's go for that one. Here we go. So well, we started publishing in December, so we haven't published too much, but we have probably published more grant proposals. So it goes for data management plans. And the idea here is also keeping young researchers in mind. Right now, when you're a young researcher and you want to apply for like a PhD position or a postdoc position, you don't have very much to show in classical terms of outputs. You have those 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 papers if you're really good. But you have produced lots of things on the way. You may have written a tool. You may have produced a new instrument. You may have done lots of other things, or a questionnaire for, as we saw in the previous presentation. All these kind of things are valuable outputs that other people can build on. And Rio is designed to actually make all of that available. And then once it's available, you can well, everyone can review it. It's all open licensed, so it can be reused like in another journal. But it's machine readable from the start, so we really go beyond the PDF. Yeah, and it's versioned. So that's another problem in current science communication. Most people, when they publish something, they consider this finite. In Rio, you can publish an updated version. And that is one way to encourage engagement with the community. 1 minute left. Okay, so my summary here is we have an attempt, a journal that tries to show or to publish the entire research process. Think of it as an embedded journalism. That concept is unfortunately mostly reserved to war, military context, but just imagine to have a journalist embedded in your research process, or if you don't have one, then you can still publish your entire research process so that the public can engage. You can find new collaborators, potential students, or even potential journalists or funders this way. And the idea of publishing the entire research cycle is certainly something that I would like to see adopted and promoted by the community at large, not just Rio Journal, but the Rio Journal is a tool that we try to use in order to stimulate discussion about that idea. What can we do better? Open access, open data are typically just discussed in terms of publishing the final bits and pieces. Even in the context of Zika right now, the data sharing policies that the funders and other institutions have, they typically kick in only at the moment of formal publication, which may be months or even more from the point of initial submission. But in an outbreak like this, where it's critical to be quick, then those months actually matter. And so if you publish your research cycle whenever a step in it is completed, then it's much more easy for the community to build on that and to engage with your research. Okay, I'll stop here.